missed it. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm Rodd Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Well, it's going to be 80s in Oklahoma today, and not quite PCH there, but Barbie sends her love. And you know what? Good morning to actually, I'm sorry, it's afternoon. Boy, the day is just flying by. Good afternoon, and welcome to Insights and Straight Talk. Actually, let me move something here. I'm a little... Yeah, so you guys know me. Nothing's perfect necessarily, and live. I like the live challenge, and I'm learning every day. We're at, by the way, we're now at over 500 shows that you folks have built. We've got over almost 25,000 subscribers and followers and so forth across our social media and I said 500 shows, and that's in a year and a half. We're now doing the show 6 days a week, and it's very exciting how you guys are building this, and I look forward to today's conversation. As you know, I'm Rodd Duff, and always here with producer Barbie. Just wanted to move this out here. So before we do step into today's conversation, I want to begin the right way by giving a real high five to the organizations that make conversations like this possible. I mean, it doesn't happen by magic. The Mangum City Library, you see their logo up here in the corner there. Thank you for standing for access, learning, and dignity in a world that too often treats knowledge as a privilege instead of as public good. To Leaf Lab, thank you for providing that education can be agile, human-centered, and connected to the real emotional and ethical challenges people are facing right now. And to our strategic partners, the Regeneration School Project and Voices at the Table, thank you for helping us create spaces where dialogue isn't performative, where vulnerability isn't punished, and where people are taught to think, listen, and wrestle honestly with difficult ideas. That ecosystem matters because today's conversation requires exactly that kind of courage and care. Now, let me tell you why this conversation, why it's important. We're living in a moment where vulnerability is increasingly treated as weakness, where empathy is politicized, where emotional depth is mistrusted, and where what Carl Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we fear, we deny, or repress, is no longer hidden quietly, but projected loudly onto others. That's the key here. And that projection is tearing us apart. We see it every day. Our guest today doesn't approach this from ideology. She doesn't perform certainty. She doesn't sanitize pain. Carol Smaldino, and I'm sorry, Carol, that's one question I didn't ask you. I hope I didn't butcher that. Smaldino is a practicing clinician at 79 years old, an author, and deeply intuitive thinker who understands something many of us are only beginning to name, that you can't think your way out of trauma. That understanding is not the same as healing, okay? And that when vulnerability is feared or shamed, empathy collapses, and with it, our capacity to live together. Her work, including Vulnerability Protected, Visions of a Dancing Mind. I love that. Oh God, I love that. I love that subtitle especially. It speaks to me. Well, that explores what she calls the emotional underbelly of politics. This is the bridge. This is the connection I really like about this. She and I were just talking about it back in the green room. Don't touch those peanuts. Not as an argument, but as psychology reality. This is not a loud conversation. This is not a performative one. This is a human one. We'll talk about trauma without spectacle, we'll talk about aging without sentimentality, about humor without denial, about shadow without moral superiority. And if you're watching live, I want to say this to you very clearly, okay? This is a conversation. It's not a lecture. Bring your questions, bring your curiosity, bring your discomfort, because what we refuse to face in ourselves doesn't disappear. It gets projected. And when that happens, we stop seeing each other as human. Carol, now I'm afraid to say it, Smaldino, brings wisdom, and I'm so sorry, Carol, nuance, and a rare honesty to this space. She also brings an ability to talk, which is really exciting. Carol, welcome. Welcome to Insights and Straight Talk. I am so glad we get a little bit of professionalism in here as I just fell off the couch there. First of all, we have 218 people that are probably going to laugh at me. Oh, Kiki 1923 put hi back, by the way. We have 215 people here now, but Carol, how do you pronounce your name? We went through all this beautiful conversation back there, and that was the first thing I wanted to ask, because that Italian accent can get butchered easy, right?
Smaldino.
I was close, right? Was I in the ballpark? That was
Yeah.
Smaldino. That's beautiful. I love accents and I love cool names, and I always butcher the names. So we went over a lot of stuff back there. You've got an amazing story. There's a lot of people piling in right now. And we've already got comments before the 10-minute mark. They're active today, I think. I think they're heated up on this subject. They're excited by it. And one of the things I love to do with people is have that conversation start off. So you're on this journey that brought you to us, that we came together on now. What was the journey that put you on that journey? Because, life isn't a straight line. We always love to say that because it shouldn't be a straight line. It's a journey. You make corrections and things happen and experiences happen and experts come on and get you to rethink something a different way. So what journey were you on that put you here?
Okay. Well,
I'm feeling deep today. Okay, Carol?
Okay, good.
Deep.
I'll try to go there with you.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's skip down the road together.
Okay. So, I have a chapter in this book called What I Bring to the Table, and I decided to
Say that book's name again.
The book, which is not yet out, is
It's
called
like 3 weeks or something coming out, isn't it?
I hope Vulnerability Protected. Visions of the Dancing Mind.
Love that.
Okay. I love it too.
Yeah. You have to love it.
Well,
otherwise you shouldn't have it on there, right?
I have to love it. I'm starting from the end. It's not really the end. I have to love it because when I started to write about it, some people, I don't want to name a name, but a lot of people know this person. She already, I'm getting myself in trouble. She really took the subject and made it smooth. And I felt, that's wrong. I felt it as raw and potentially dangerous. And I looked it up in the dictionary, online, and found vulnerability as susceptible to danger. So safety, protection, really, and working that through so that people have enough of a boundary not to be overwhelmed by fear is crucial. So I guess I didn't have that safety. As an easy place, it's an easy venue to go to. I didn't really have that.
Okay, can you stay there for a second on that boundary and fear relationship?
Okay.
Explain that further. Remember, I talked to you in the green room about kind of hovering here a little bit.
Yeah,
I
sure.
want to understand more where you're going with that. What does that look like?
Well, I'm going to tell you what my dancing mind is saying, and it's going to thinking about a child and thinking about a child who's scared of having to do a particular thing, having to meet with a particular person. And the question I would often ask is, what would help you? What do you need? How can I help? So
Is this your own internal child? Is that where is that dancing mind going?
No.
Or frame that more a little bit.
I'm thinking of a person who is scared, as feeling childlike, as feeling something bad could happen or is about to happen or has happened. And I am trying to understand that process so we can together figure out what would help. And then what would help can form a kind of boundary. So one of the things that can happen is that we get ready for something not going well. We don't just go into vulnerability with a bully, and there are plenty of them around, without a kind of preparation about what we're going to do if things go south. So it's
is this before there's ever any element or any concern that there's something on the horizon, or is this a daily practice for people who may have those that emptiness, that concern? Is this, what is this practice not confronting? Who is working this?
Okay, well, I'm thinking a person in my practice who needs to talk to his father, let's say, and is really scared, has been put down by his father in the past, but wants a relationship. And I have actually offered at times myself being in the room and having
for that
intergenerational. I really like that a lot. And because I try to be empathic with both sides. So
empathic, I'm familiar with the term. Please, I'm the safety net. If I understand, I guarantee everybody else will. Empathic. Open that up.
I can usually be pretty good at putting myself in the shoes of the other person. And one of the things
in this case, both of them. Gotcha. I'm following you. Okay.
And it could take turns. It could take turns, because if someone's sobbing, I'm not immediately going to the other person, but so I'm staying there. But and then I think when I try to help people understand vulnerability and why that's important, I don't think we can be empathic unless we're somewhat okay with our own vulnerability, because that's part of us. It's just part of us.
Yeah, we're on a frequency. We're a human species, full of energy. I mean, there's numbers out there that say the brain could power a small town for a week just on the energy it produced, the body, a larger, whatever those numbers actually are. And then we have a frequency that goes out. So I'm loving and dialing in, and I'm connecting dots here that are fascinating to me when you talk about empathic and having to be open to that vulnerability of you, of who you are, what you are, those things, because what does that do? That opens that frequency, that what, it does something. It does something electronic, and it has to be that opening of a door. I love this.
It's also very equalizing.
Meaning,
if I'm in a room and let's say, with an aggressive guy, just saying, doesn't have to be
okay,
guy, but, and I'm feeling
a
scared.
toxic male.
I never heard of that. No kidding.
That's why I said it.
Yeah. So,
sorry, couldn't resist.
And I'm feeling scared.
Gotcha.
Let's say I'm feeling scared. So I'm in touch with my vulnerability. And I'm guessing that in that guy who happens to be in my office or online, who's consented to have a conversation with me. So that's already something. He's not about to pummel me. I start to think that he could be vulnerable. He could be scared too. He could be scared of somebody. Let's say I'm the therapist of his kid who's now 22, and I can feel like a threat. So I try to be sensitive to that. And in my questioning, I could, how does this feel to you to be here? I mean, you didn't ask to do it. So what do you think of this? What do you think of your son being in therapy? I mean, yeah, what do you think of it? So like that.
It opens so many doors when you handle a conversation from that point, because you're not coming. I always say, there was I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson. I may be not right about that, but in one of his poems, there was a scene in a show that's Ted Lasso. I don't know if you know it, but I love that show. So you know the dart scene?
No.
Okay, so there's a scene in there where he's having this conversation with somebody who bet him at this game of darts. And I don't want to get into the whole thing because it's a very cool thing. But in that scene, he references Ralph Waldo Emerson, I'm pretty sure. And he's talking about, and it always bothered me that these folks always underestimated me. And finally, I realized I was driving my son home from school one day, and there it was painted on the side of a wooden fence. And it said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And that line, I mean, I heard that at the very beginning of the show, and it kind of had a shaping of this show to that, because I'm a very curious person. And when you're curious about things, you approach things and you open doors to clients that I know myself. I've always had a mask over my face, I call it, right? Same sort of thing. You're behind a wall, right? You're putting, and to have that vulnerability, you open other people's vulnerability. Why? Because you're authentic. And that's why I've been so excited about having this conversation with you. Let me jump to one of these questions, if you don't mind. Did you want to finish that thought, or are you good?
I want to finish. I just want to say that part of being vulnerable is being vulnerable to an awareness of all the sides of us, and some of them really not pretty. So you're saying you're not you're talking about not being judgmental. I can be very judgmental. So one of the things I have to work on is kind of getting to my story of what is making me judgmental in this situation, and where
that's coming from. Right?
Yeah. So I'm not promising to anybody, not even to myself, that I'm so nice, that I'm so vulnerable, that I'm so aware, that I'm better than anybody.
No, we're not I like to talk about this show being an ecosystem. It's not a one conversation thing. We're not a one-time fix species. There's a lot of cartilage, no, not cartilage, scar tissue that, like you said, you've got to continually work on. It's funny. Can I take a little sidebar here for a second, if you don't mind? By the way, there's well over 300 people on here. I was talking to somebody at the gym, Total Fitness here earlier this morning. You could tell I'm using my workout outfit today, my favorite sweatshirt of all time, and it shows because it should have been gone a long time ago. But at least I have a new hat. But while we're there, I was talking to somebody about the Jewish. We do a lot of different topics on this show, and we're talking about this conversation I had with this guy named Penny. He goes by the name Penny Weskin, and he's Jewish, very strong in faith, and does the Sabbath, and very culturalistic within his religion, not like a casual Christian or something like that. But he said something to me that surprised me, and because I just didn't know that the Jewish faith, especially the stronger, true Jewish followers, believe in reincarnation. And I went, oh wow, are you serious? Really? Okay, explain it. He goes, let me explain it. And basically, we all have a soul, and there's whatever billions and trillions and quadrillions and sextillions of souls out there. And at any one time, God will pick a soul and put it into a baby that's being born. And the thought behind all that is that every person is perfect, and that soul going down into a baby being born is finishing up part of the life before that didn't get you to that point of perfection, of heavenly moment. And sometimes he gave me an example. You know of SIDS. You've heard of SIDS, right?
Yeah.
Where babies being born and within a month dying, and nobody knows why. Mm-hmm. In the Jewish faith, while it's obviously mourned, of course, there's also this bit of pride, because they look at that baby only needed that amount of time. Sorry, I'm getting choked up over this. I don't know why. That amount of time to perfect that soul. And then whatever happens after that's a whole nother conversation. But isn't that a beautiful story? And that's what we talk about, building from the inside out. It just added to some layer to that. What do you think of that?
I think that's kind of wild. I think
it is wild.
I'm interested in the fact that it's so moving to you. And if we had an hour, I'd want to talk about that. I don't know if we've made this clear, but I am Jewish.
We have not made that clear. No.
We have not been that clear. So I went to social work school at Yeshiva University School of Social Work, and I have worked with a lot of Orthodox Jews, referred to me by an Orthodox psychiatrist who told people I was unconventional and they'd like me. So I don't really know that thing about perfection. I think it's beautiful that you feel it's beautiful. I
do feel it's beautiful.
All right, then I think that says something about you. Seriously.
Oh, of course. Because no doubt about it.
For me, part of the problem I've had with Judaism, and probably just about every religion, is that they don't allow for the shadow, and they don't allow for the vast imperfection that we all have. And I've come to feel that the beauty is in the imperfection. So when Carl Jung, so you might cry with this too, because Carl Jung, when he said, he was not terribly poetic as far as, the translation from the German, but he said, only the imperfect can love, because the perfect would have no need. And
nice. I like that.
I love that. Yeah. So his thing about moving toward health is for us to take back are projections. Like the stuff that we haven't liked, that has scared us, we put onto other people. The effort is to take it back and have it be part of us. So we're so rich and made up of all these parts, the good, the bad, the ugly. So, but I do think it's moving to you. It's not something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, and that's another one of those things that I love about this show, because like I said earlier, I get this free input, this free knowledge from experts, and quite often there's just a little bit of a slant, a little bit of a thicker layer, a little bit of a different layer that makes that layer thicker, is what I should have said. And it just is so, it's so beautiful for me, to being a curious person, to be able to kind of explore those ideas across and to different experts. And by the way, I did not know you were Jewish, but I am not surprised whatsoever at all. And I just find the Jewish, I find all religions, I wrote a book, and I haven't published it or anything, but anyway, there's a long story behind it. That's why this podcast is here, and why in a year and a half we have 25,000 subscribers, which blows my mind, to be honest with you. But it across those chapters, I've explored different things, and I've lived a unique life, and it's been fun because I'm able to talk about these kind of things, and like Ali Moore here, is emotional repression taught socially or learned through trauma? That's an interesting question to me.
Okay, so you want me to have a go?
Let's have a go at this. Let's knock a couple of these out. There's a whole bunch of questions here. I did want to kind of mix that in.
Yeah, that's good. I don't think it has to be either or. Is emotional repression taught socially or learned through trauma? And sometimes, is it taught socially? That can be a trauma in itself.
Yeah, that's a complex answer, isn't it? Because it's a broad brush question, and we all know how socially, especially today, is affecting us, which is different. Well, it's not different. I mean, we used to be bullied in the playground. Now it's all across the internet. It's different visibility is all. But those things apply, right?
Yes. And yeah, I think both. I'd love it if you could be a little more specific, if you have an addition to the question.
I don't. There'll be follow-ups on a lot of them, but I don't see anything from her now. Maybe we'll see something in a little bit. But how I take it is, emotional repression taught socially. So the ability to have emotions outward, right? What you're talking about, looking at the shadow, and socially, I'd even, now that I rethink this, I think until recently, I'm a male, I'm a guy. I'm an old guy, and so I grew up more in an era, and my dad more grew up in an era and before, where men were expected to act a certain way and be the provider and be this or that. And at the end of the day, by God, don't ever tell anybody what the hell's going on in there. I think we've kind of caught up a little bit on that because of platforms like this and just talking more about it. People like you coming on and saying, hey guys, come on, man, be real here. And I think that's becoming much more. So I think socially taught is definitely in that ballpark, and learn through trauma. The other side of this whole thing is, and this is kind of falls into my school regeneration project, why we're here in Mangum. And that's a whole nother thing. I think you'll hear me mention it at the end. But family trauma or bully trauma, but family trauma is a big deal. It's a real thing. And it's because I think parents, especially today, are dealing in a world they have no idea. My kids were the last generation ever to experience anything in my life, right? After him, my kids are 40 and 39-ish. After him, my granddaughter has no clue about anything. The world is different. And if you already don't have tools, sorry for taking this part of it over, I apologize. If you don't have tools, you can't know what you don't know, kind of thing. If you don't have those tools already, I think today, this year, now, these times is probably the hardest it is ever going to be because of this, parents, this bridge generation it's harder than it ever is going to be. It'll probably get better. Parenting kids today because they're like aliens to us. You add all that in and not having the tools and then not have worked upon yourself. And that's what we preach is starting young, that interaction of being able to communicate and to differentiate and not start having those, because I think starting at 3 months, your last trimester, that's when the baby starts to feel and hear and literally takes in information about themselves and what they're going into. And that's a big reason why by 5 years old, that kid has already got a personality set. I know I'm going over a broad range here, but this subject fascinates me, and it's so important to be doing what you're doing and talking about. Tell us a little bit about the chapters in the book, if you would, and then we'll go back to some of these questions here.
Can I just say something about this question? I think
absolutely
it's important about the use, at least the way I use the word, repression and suppression.
Yes. Yeah, because,
I agree. When somebody suppresses an emotion, it's usually conscious. And so it's usually easier to access from the outside when it's brought up. When someone represses, it goes kind of into the fathoms of the insides, and it's harder. It's harder, a person will feel like it's odd that you can even suggest that, they have a certain emotion. So I just wanted to say that.
That is a big difference. I'm glad, I say I like to dig deeper and you may say something. I glanced over that and I'm glad you caught that because that's an important distinction. Repression is so much deeper to where it's not actively grabbed onto, or right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, let's get into your book a little bit. Tell me about some of the chapters and how that works.
Okay.
Actually, let me take this off the screen. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about vulnerability, and I decided pretty early that I would include a chapter about my life. I felt that
perfect.
I wanted to not equalize the playing field, but sort of come clean, it's a mixture, actually. I wanted to share. I wanted to be equal. And I think in doing that, maybe it helps some people not be as ashamed because
What do you mean fair and equal? What do you mean by that, fair and equal? In relation to what?
I wanted to help the reader feel on an equal playing field with me.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
So I knew I was going to do that. And then I wasn't sure about the beginning. I read a book called Caste, Caste, by Isabel Wilkerson. Have you heard of it?
I know that book. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I use it as a reference in my my book proposal. You do a book proposal.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know the book very well. It's a very good book.
It's a very
powerful book.
Very powerful. Yep. And it's called Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. And it blew me away. And I decided that I needed to have a chapter on culture, on the context of vulnerability, and on the fact, it includes the fact that in a sense, vulnerability is a privilege because there are many people in our world, whether personally traumatized or traumatized through war.
Ooh, I like this.
And oppression and famine and discrimination. They have no space to feel vulnerable. It's dangerous. They can get hurt or literally killed if they
100%.
express anything that's close to neediness. And so that opened me up to look at the culture. And then I knew I started to write this before Trump's second term and before he had announced his candidacy. And then when he did, I thought, well, I have to include this, not having it be a political book, but I had to include this. So I have a chapter called Vulnerability Crushed and identifying with the aggressor. And just to
that you framed that chapter the way you framed it.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk about this chapter. Tell me a little bit about this chapter. I am very eager to have several conversations that are controversial because I'm always loving to develop and grow as somebody who talks to people and being able to have that full conversation without it getting into divides. Unfortunately, in this conversation, I'm almost 100% we're on the same side. So
Yeah.
I don't know that there's going to be any ability to have any discourse. But I think that's important, having discourse. Go ahead. Tell me about this chapter.
Well, the chapter really is about, I mean, it's part of the theoretical view of the book, which is that
Overall?
in order to
Okay,
be
gotcha.
safe with vulnerability, you have to have some modicum of safety. And if there is not that there, you either go into hiding or you tend to act like the people who hurt you, whether it's in the schoolyard or whether it's a mother or father or a church or a synagogue or any of that. So you tend to cancel out your own vulnerability because, you look at, let's say, a powerful person, then you look at a really weak person. And I say that not as disparaging. And you kind of have a choice to make. Now, some people empathize with the person who's victimized, and other people say, and sometimes it's unconscious, like, no way, I'm not going there. I'm going to copy the bully. So I'm going to identify with the person who's more aggressive. And so what I'm going to do is distance from weakness and distance from weak people and distance from the weakness inside of me. So you have people who don't want to know that they have any weakness.
Yeah. I think that's, I relate what you're talking about right now to my own personal story to a degree. And producer Barbie used to call it, I think I mentioned this earlier, behind the mask. For my whole life, I've dealt with mental illness, a break with drugs and alcohol, with medical. I broke every bone in the side of the body. All sorts of fun little things evolved through my life. And then at some point when that break occurred, it was like all those compartmentalized things that I had in my head, all building up to that point a couple of years ago. They were all over the floor. They were scattered. Everything. I had that moment. Not a what's it called? A midlife crisis. A different thing. Something bigger. And from that point, I started kind of looking at life differently because I had to take that mask off. And then I started to really look at myself through the help of producer Barbie. She frankly saved my life. That's not a new thing on the show. It's something I've mentioned many times. But at that point, I started this whole thought process. Being a curious person, this thought process of really starting to look at what does the great middle class care about, and what can empower them. And it's people like you and conversations like this that kind of really have people change, have that moment of considering their thought, because I don't think what we do enough in our lives is take an active participation. And I think that makes all the difference in the world and is the catalyst for what you're talking about here. Let's dig a little bit deeper into this chapter now. So are you in that chapter, are you talking about basically the what I've been calling several weeks ago, kind of came off that arc, but calling that we're screaming past each other? Is that the conversation in that chapter? Is that chapter is having? Is that what you're going?
No,
Okay, where are we going?
It's really talking about how many people are taught to feel that weakness is kind of a crime or ugly, and that it needs to be banished in some way. So they become part of an aggressive class of people. It doesn't mean that's all they are, but it means that on the surface, that's what we see. We see people who don't care about other people.
Okay. And so are you saying that's where the political parties start to divide into, is through that lens? Is that where you're going? I'm trying to capture this.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to Carl Jung for a second, okay? He said that we have everything under the universe inside of us. We're capable of the best, we're capable of the worst. And unless we have a way to unify inside,
Okay.
we are going to find people and groups that we are going to blame things on. So one way of looking at this really is if you look at it through the lens of him, and it's not a new book and he's not alive, but he was very, very worried about nuclear war. This was in the 1950s. And he felt that if nothing happened to interrupt the tendency to scapegoat, that there could be a war. And what he said was, we're not any worse than any time before. We just have weapons that can hurt and kill. And so I think there's some truth in that. I mean, I find it positive
100%.
to look at history and to see that we have scapegoated Black people. We have scapegoated. I mean, I don't have to talk about the Holocaust. I don't think that is a thing, a big thing.
And that's still going on. And surprisingly at a very high level, which just blows me. You got to see this episode with Penny 3 Fridays ago, I think. That blows me away how we're still there. Go on with your point, but you said Holocaust, and it's disgusting.
Okay, well, I'll go on with your point, which is that if we don't metabolize, if we don't figure out, if we don't
evolve,
work through what we're feeling, we're just going to keep going. I mean, it's like, all right, I'm going to answer a question that you asked me at the beginning and we skipped over it, which is fine. It's just like, how did I start this? Like my story. Okay. Now my story was that things are kind of crazy around me. A lot of fighting. Let's just say a lot of arguing. And I don't know. I love accents, as you do, and I love languages. That was my best thing. And I thought I could do something with that. And I was discouraged and I was sensitive. So I let the discouragement in and I didn't think about it anymore. But what I thought of, which is that, there was a lot wrong in my family. And I think I had a bit of a savior complex. I think I thought it goes like this. I'm going to save them and then they can save me. Like, because I'm a kid, right? So now that's not that practical. And, I did some things in between and I didn't like Brooklyn College. I wound up in Italy. It's a long story, but
I
we
love it.
can go back to that if you want. We could talk Italian. Anyway,
I can't talk Italian.
I could just talk Italian to you. Um, what happened to me is I thought, okay, I'm going to go into social work because that's what a psychology professor said was the best thing to do. And I'm going to be a good person. I wanted to be a good person, right? And I did some good casework. And then I worked in a residential treatment center. And these kids had been schooled in abuse. They had been abused, neglected, and my desire to be good came face to face with their desire to have me go on my knees and beg for mercy. And I'm almost kidding you not. I mean, it wasn't really physical, but it's like they knew how to drive.
Is this inner city? Is this inner city?
Not necessarily. This was Upper East Side. And some kids were really poor and some kids were not.
So it's
So
the middle class. Interesting.
it was enough of the middle class. It was people who seemed like almost like a prison population because it was like, I felt like I was in West Side Story. And what weapons do you have? What weapons do you have? And I felt so ill-equipped. It was beyond. And I didn't, in terms of vulnerability, I didn't feel that I could really say this to anybody because they thought I should be competent. And so one day I was sitting in my office, which was on the 4th floor. There was a kid I was working with who had had actual homicide in his family upbringing. And the thought came into my head, why don't I ask him to come to the window so I can help him jump? Now, he had driven me so crazy that I wanted to hurt him. And I'm going to tell you that in that moment, I started to become a decent therapist. Started because my journey to be a good person was thwarted. It was like, first I said, I'm such a terrible person that I should quit. I'm not good enough. And then I came to this actually myself. It's one of my more creative moments. I sat with this kid on the stairwell. He was 11. And I said, listen, I have to tell you that I give up. You win. You're better at this than I am. You can make me cry. You can make me push you out of the office. You can make me feel kind of cuckoo. The question is, do you want to help me figure out why you need to do this? Because otherwise, I can't manage. And basically, his answer was a yes. It was not neat in any regard. It was messy. It was very messy. But that was where I started to begin to be willing to look at the shadow in me. And, in terms of my marriage, that affected everything because I had been one of those people like, I got married pretty young and I thought he was going to complete me. I was going to complete him. No, way. Okay. So there's a therapist I like very much called Terry Real, and he says we marry our unfinished business. So it's like what you can't handle in yourself, you just marry it, or you go to war with it, or you marry it and you hate it, but you hate, in essence, a part of you that you projected onto the other person. So it's like, I didn't want to hear this, because that meant
Yeah.
so much work. That
You
meant
know, they talk about how you project or you hurt the person who you love the most. That's you're there, you're living with them, and then now as things are coming out, unless you've cleaned out your own closet, for lack of a better word, now you start projecting on that person, and that really tears down the relationship. Been there. Ryan, excuse me. Ryan has a great question here. Can polarization really begin at the psychological level first? And that's kind of, I think, where you're building out of from right now.
well, I don't know the other part of the question if there is one, but yes, my answer would be yes, because one of the things I don't think we talk about, and I guess I'm trying to talk about in a different way, is we are often polarized within. We're not friends with all the parts of us. So we put this part over there and we put that part over there, and we decide which part to access at a given moment, but
How to deal with that moment?
how to come at a situation at that moment. But I think that I think that in a way that is polarization. We are made up of many parts, and we don't find a space for them to get together, and so they can be accepted. So they, start fighting from the get-go.
Oh, my timing was bad there. Sorry about that. You finished sooner than I thought. I wanted to get to this question earlier, but we went down a path there. I was kind of trying to set up here. But Branson, I like this because it's kind of one of the things I want to continually explore. Because let's face it, politics, no matter whether you vote or not, whether that's a decision, no matter who you're voting for, politics is still a part of our life. Are the people who represent us to make our, in local politics is the most politics. But Branson here's got an interesting question. What makes empathy collapse in heated political conversations? And that's kind of at a core of where we are today. That statement right there is where this society is today. So I think it's a great question Branson's got here. Sorry, I got something stuck in my chest there. Go ahead.
So part of my answer is that I'm not that good at this, that I'm still really working at this as a practice, because I think
it's an important practice and it's evolving.
After, just reading the words, I think that if somebody is insulting me or my values or my vulnerability, I feel very defensive. And that's my first go-to. And so I would have to have enough of a boundary to say, look, I'm feeling really defensive and I'm going to try to manage this. So I really want to hear more about where you're coming from. The other thing is my podcast, which is not in existence yet, but it's a great one if you want to collaborate. It's called How I Got Here. And it involves a person saying how I got to this point of view, what in my journey brought me here. And it has no debate. It has simply a person telling a story, because really it's through the story that the empathy opens up. I can empathize with
Ooh,
just about anybody as long as they tell me their story. And I mean anybody. I really mean anybody. And I think it's true with a Nazi. For me. And a lot of people who have changed in this world have been really terrible people, have committed crimes, and they have been through some transformation. And I think, again, if I'm really going to be honest and stick with the fact that Carl Jung said we're all potential criminals, crimes were committed by people. And if we are people, we are capable. So,
and susceptible to
and
that, correct?
susceptible, and then susceptible to feeling superior to it.
Yeah.
Like I would never do that. Well, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
You,
So
I've got an interesting. I've heard a few different things on kind of where you're leaning into right now, and it comes from a little bit deeper place, maybe, meaning that some of the conversation that these conversations have need to also tuck into them the knowledge that ideology, when it gets to a point where your ideology becomes your political persuasion, you've really kind of screwed yourself as a person.
right.
And the way this person, or a couple of people have explained it to me, which I thought was not only fascinating but perfectly said, is when that becomes your ideology, now it's not just an idea. Politics is an idea, specifically talking about politics. It could be other things as well. But when it becomes your ideology, if I have a disagreement with you and now it's your ideology, now that civil disagreement, that exchange of ideas now becomes an attack because it's against you, not that idea. And that's where we're so into right now. That's what's so frustrating, is it's so simple to understand why there's this not big, because most people live in the middle, it's the extremes, but it's so vocal and it's so powering right now. And it's so simple because it's the difference between having an ideology, which is dangerous, and having an idea about your politics, because that's open to what we have, and that's a democratic republic, not a democracy. Big difference. Takes a little more brains.
So if you would add onto the democratic republic idea the issue of organizing one's emotions, we would have
Okay.
this become a potential game or process whereby there would be certain rules, like no name calling, like phrase your comments so that it has some curiosity and readiness to hear the other side. It requires some real discipline, and I
Oh,
think that
100%. And emotional maturity.
yeah, well, and emotional maturity. But here's the deal for me, and willingness to see how immature we are. Because that, I think I'm a pretty good person only because I know how not good I am. I think I'm somewhat mature because I know that I fall apart on that, pretty easily. So there's that.
Well, and what you're saying is, where your limits are. Being mature, you're being active in your own life, meaning that you have that emotional maturity because you know where you are and you know where you can get the most out of you, as the Army would say, get the most, right? Get the most out of yourself. No, that's not how they said it. Be all that you can be.
Okay.
And it's an Army thing. But yeah, I love that because it's critical that each and every day we know where we are, because that's that light in the journey I was talking about before. Our journey is putting lights on where the trouble parts are, so we don't fall off, or we get back up on it because we can see it. This is one of those. If you know where that's going, you can either grow from it and not be a trigger or not be something else, or know where you need to manage that. And that's emotional maturity.
I guess the other thing is, you introduced me and I'm 79 years old, and I'm thinking, so here's the deal today. There's this guy named Gabor Mate. He's like the guru of trauma. And he's I don't know, 3 years older than me. And he said that it's not about getting old or being old, but it's about growing old. So there's no real reason that people have to stop this at my age or even older. And I think people need permission to.
Can I interrupt on what you just said? And you're going to finish, and people need permission. But it's interesting you said that, because we're in this health arc right now, which we talked about already. But in that arc is the description of when a woman moves through different cycles of life, and the final cycle is after menopause and that whole process. But that's when a woman becomes the matriarch. And that being such a critical and important family structure, and by family structure, a societal instruction. As a matter of fact, I'm working on that exact part of the cycle right now. And it's interesting what you just said, because we as a society focus too much. There's a lot of things that we can talk about here, but specifically on the woman's cycle of life, that matriarch level is our position, is actually the most important position for a family, for a person, a family, and literally a neighborhood and society, because that generational experience, when the menopause goes through its process, there's a whole period there where a woman is more perfect than ever, because she's bringing all this with her into this position, and she acts different. It's like coming out of a cocoon, literally. And it's an interesting, I've been having this conversation. It's fascinating to me. I've learned so much. But in that, you talked about at any age, you're 79, right? And that's where experience comes from. And I think that's something we need to know more about out here in the world, because this is where all the wisdom's coming from.
Well, the other thing is that if you go along with Carl Jung and imperfection, one of the ways wisdom can show up is by modeling imperfection, by modeling curiosity, by modeling that I don't think I will ever stop learning. I hope I don't. I hope I don't. And in that, I'm also teaching. I have grandchildren, and they're watching me, and they're watching me listen to them. They're watching me hear them. And so, and value what they have to teach me, because any of us can only see a part of things. And we all, and we're talking about polarization. The idea is, if any of us can only see a part of things, that if we come together and we are open and let each other in, we're a hell of a lot smarter.
Yeah, you're every time every time you're in a conversation that you totally agree with, that's fine. That's great. It's a great conversation. But it's always been the conversations that I hadn't agreed with going into, and I go into a conversation like you alluded to earlier, when you were saying what I like to say is, I go into a conversation saying, teach me this. What am I missing? What do I need to learn? I want to come into this learning something from you. And I think that's a key standard for people to have. especially when it comes to these disagreements, because they're so firecracker right now, and they're so fed and fueled by news media, and people let them off the hook a little bit when they say, clicks are, bad things get bigger clicks. They've always said that about bad news attracts better than good news, right? And I assume that's to a degree a point, but I think in today it's even at a higher element, in that there's a controlling thing going on. If you're dividing the masses, divide and conquer, right? First men and women, then religions, and then start throwing shiny objects out there so they get distracted and they start fighting with each other. Lots of examples of that, but it just drives me nuts that it really boils down to these lessons that I'm learning and seeing every day from people like you. And you specifically in this conversation. Sorry, I don't have my comments on. I wanted to pull
Oh
them
yeah,
up here.
there's a good one. Whoa.
Whoa,
No,
whoa,
no,
whoa.
no.
Was it this one?
No.
No,
There
but
was
read that out loud, would you, for me?
really appreciating the depth and honesty in this lively chat. Thank you.
Was
But
it
that was
this
a
one?
question. Is fear the root of most projection? But there was another.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I know what I did. I'm a bunch of questions came in and I'm all the way down at the bottom. Did we face trauma without turning it into
yes,
identity?
Yes, that one.
That one. That was where we were and we got sidetracked there. Go ahead.
Now that's a tough one, because I kind of want to know the grammar to this. Seriously. How do we face trauma without turning it into identity? And how I'm reading that is like, how do we face trauma without turning ourselves into a victim or seeing trauma as the end all be all? And
almost using it as a crutch, as an identity to make excuses, or to be able to widen your path of giving yourself excuses to fail, or to not have that relationship, or to on and on and on and on that trauma provides for us, right?
Well, I guess, but yeah, I have a chapter, by the way. I didn't get to this. I don't know whether it's 6 or 7. I don't have it in front of me, which is called When Vulnerability Becomes an Addiction.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're right here. We're right here.
We're right
exactly.
Here.
Go ahead, build on that.
Because when you think about it, the idea of curiosity, or the idea of evolving, is to keep growing. And
100%.
when we grow, we confront situations that are difficult. And when we've had a lot of trauma,
oh my God, hold on. We've already gone an hour and 10 minutes. That went by really fast. Go ahead with the way you're saying, but I just looked up and I went, holy cow. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Carol.
So where was I? Come on.
You were talking about trauma?
Yeah, trauma. And okay. So we need to be, it's good if we can evolve, and if we can be open to new things. And if we've had a lot of trauma, very often we've stopped at a certain point. We've stopped growing. So guess what?
True.
Then to keep growing is scary. And we need somebody to help us face that vulnerability and be willing to do it, so we don't just say, I'm stopping, and my life is one of a complaint. And also, when people have had trauma, they often have had a lot of sadness. Now, but as people come to more life, they get in touch with their anger. And a lot of people do not want that at all. A lot of people want to do what I tried to do and didn't work out that well. They want to be the good guy. And then they're in a family that's very enmeshed, and they have some anger that they really need to get more independent and autonomous, but they don't want to go near that. So it's like, I found that sometimes working with trauma has to be what a person is scared of moving forward. And guess what? That there's also maybe some anger that we should take a look at. And I found that this chapter I like because it's also very intergenerational,
Yeah, we
like back
talk a
and
lot about
forth.
that.
And it's often how parents, older parents, can grow from having, bridging things with middle-aged children. So, and I really like that too, because it's like a bang for your buck. And I don't really mean that. I mean that it's a beautiful thing because it's not just one generation.
It's funny. It's funny you brought that up. We talk about the Regeneration School Project and Voices at the Table, and those programs that we're working into the school system here. Those programs came out of conversations that I had with my granddaughter through a not a duplicate, but a partner show. It's called Insights and Straight Talk with Emmeline and Grandpa Rodd, and that intergenerational knowledge. I've learned so much from it started out us just having conversations, and it grew and grew and grew, and it really developed these things. And literally, the reason I'm here in Mangum instead of in Chicago, but are one of the reasons. And it's fascinating what you say, because those intergenerational conversations, we need more voices at the table and younger voices.
Yes.
Those are critical.
So this question I love.
Yes, please read it out loud from David. Great question. I was going to say that.
Great show. I love that.
Absolutely. Me too. Hey, by the way, folks, like this episode and subscribe to the show. We're getting about 100 every couple of days of subscribers on the show, and it's exciting. Go ahead.
How does vulnerability become strength instead of weakness?
I love this. It's kind of what we've been circling around, and I'm glad he's diving right into it. Okay, so vulnerability is always looked at as a weakness, right? We've talked about that. Now, what's the bridge? What's that? What is it that you do that now we bring it over to a vulnerability? And part of that is awareness, so you know where you are, right?
Okay, don't talk anymore, please, because I just had a thought. I didn't mean to be rude, but I just like.
No. Go ahead.
And it was actually, the word that you used before, which is one of my favorite words, dignity. And Dignity Press, very small press, is publishing my book, and I'm very glad because dignity is right there. I think that there's also something about the dignity of vulnerability, even the dignity of weakness, that can already make you strong, because when you know what you need to go to the next step, you can have a boundary. So if, let's just say, you, the other person in the room, started to yell at me, I get very tense at that moment and probably scared. I might go into rage or anger, but right now I'm feeling I'm going to be scared. And so I trust you enough, or I trust the atmosphere enough, or I trust myself enough to say, look, when you yell at me, it's very hard for me to think. So can you take a step back and rephrase this? Now, to me, that already sounds strong. In other words, I know that I react such and such a way in this circumstance, and I would like to influence something about this situation so that I don't have to go to complete weakness. Now that already, it's a self-definition. And so again, what I feel is vulnerability needs safety, and it needs support, and it needs dignity. See, if you feel the dignity, you don't have that shame, because half the time It's the shame of vulnerability. People feel ashamed of being scared. And very often when kids, let's say, I had this at a family when a girl, she was about 11 at the time, and she felt incredible shame because because she was scared. And I helped her know that her enunciating, pronouncing that fear was very brave. So her admitting her vulnerability was an act of bravery. And I think they commingle. I think that I don't think vulnerability per se is strength, but I think it can get to be strength. And when you know yourself enough to know what will help you get to the next step, you're still kind of vulnerable, but you're defining something.
Yeah, and that does become that's another tool. That's a broader tool that opens up things that do make you more powerful. That's good. I like that. I like that. Talk about Clayton here. Loving this conversation already. So thoughtful. Why don't you read that out loud?
Loving this conversation already. So thoughtful. And I'm loving this because it's also making me think.
Yeah, that's what I love about this. I mean, it just really broadens you, and you know, one of the most famous things ever said, I don't know everything, and that's never going to be the case. But with today, the world, the tools that we have, and then shows like this that give people that opportunity to share with me and this audience, of course. But I'm in the middle of the boat while all the talking's going on, and it's awesome. Wanho, I hope I'm saying that right, sir. What does real self-work look like in later life? And I've been waiting to ask this question because I'm in that, period. And it's real life lived experience, I like to say. So tell me what this is perfect.
Okay. I was going to say first, my first thought was it looks messy. And I kind of meant that it can still be messy after all these years. I mean, but I think what I've learned from trauma work, okay, is that when we get triggered, and this is later too, when we get triggered or we get into a fight flight situation, I've learned that the best kind of therapy for me, at least, is when I'm asked, what does it feel like? What does it feel that is triggering me? And also, what age am I feeling? Like, is this coming from an early place, or is this?
Say that again.
What age?
What age
am I coming from? What age am I feeling?
Love that.
And again, the dignity of being able to say, I'm feeling 4 years old, and being able to explain that or cry about it or shift about it is kind of a beautiful thing because you're not ashamed and you're already stronger.
God, yes, absolutely. And it's just building on each other. I love how this is, I don't want to say that we're unpeeling the onion. We're opening the flower. I love all these different aspects. I love this. Jennifer here. How do we stay open without becoming emotionally overwhelmed? And I get that. I mean, that definitely, I can get where that comes from. What do you think?
I think it's great. I think it's really hard because you want to be genuine. So you want to be authentic. So you want to be touchable. And at the same time, you don't want to be in full danger. And so what comes to my mind, and it's a very big question and it's a gorgeous question.
It is.
So what's coming to my mind is that I like to be with somebody with whom I feel safe to go to a place that can be a little messy. And
I get
if
that.
if I start to feel otherwise, that I'm becoming overwhelmed. And again, this works some of the time and some of the time it does not. It's like a signal. So I talked about, triggers, but the good news is that anxiety or fear or even anger can become triggers, signals. They can really add to the safety inside. They can be an uh-oh moment, like, uh-oh, someone's in the room and I'm about to lose it. And I can actually usually interrupt myself. And as a psychotherapist, I used to say that I consider myself honest. I mean, I think I think you can tell that. I think that's some of why people have sought me out. But I will also say that I'm not honest when I'm really scared. And usually I mean physically.
I get that. Yeah, I get that.
I
I
mean,
get that.
but I mean it emotionally too. There are some people who are toxic and they are looking for trouble, and that needs a backing off and
Oh,
the setting of a
absolutely.
boundary. But
Yeah. And that's not an everyday thing, thank goodness, but there's still those in between that can be stressful each and every day, right?
right,
Hey,
and yeah,
hey, by the way, while you're talking, if you could, while you're talking there, I forgot to mention this earlier, but towards the end, and we've got, I don't know, we've got a half a dozen questions as they're coming in now. But can you put your contact information there? I like to do that towards the end of the show because that way people aren't looking all through they may want to go through the comments. That's true. But
sure.
at least at the end there, they can contact you directly. You know how it goes. They may watch
Yeah.
the show a minute after it's over or a year after it's over.
Okay,
So
where would you like
when
me to do that?
see where it says the chat over there on your right hand side.
The chat with everyone in the studio?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
everyone in the studio. That's me, in other words. So if you would put that in there, I'll see a little red dot that pops up. As I'll start to set this question up from Roy Drink. Is fear the root of most projection? And I love that because, there's a lot that fear creates but is caused by, because otherwise we wouldn't have it. Certain things we are fight or flight, we have that in us, but we're afraid of so much more stuff now. What do you think of this discussion here as you're typing away? Did you enter it? I
Uh,
don't see a red dot over there.
Well, I'm starting.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha. Okay. All right.
okay,
I'll
so
cover. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
the thing is that, again, I'm going back to Carl Jung. There is a lot more to be afraid of because it's right out in the open. It's right out in the open. And we have certain leaders that are doing stuff that never has been done except quietly. So we're used to a lot more quiet, even politically speaking.
That's
So,
true. Do you mind me asking what those things are? So just so I can frame it.
what kind of thing is?
That's happening. That certain people in the administration or politically are doing things. For instance,
The guy on top says he's stupid, he's crap, he's fat. Don't listen to him. I mean, who thought of somebody saying that? You know, this guy has an opinion. Get him off the air. He can't have the show. He can't say this. It's like unheard of. So it's extra scary, and
oh,
it's
you're saying Trump is those things, is what you're
yes,
saying?
I am, yeah. And so
And
and
just so I could add to that, I know where that comes from, and I've always been a trust but verify kind of person, and I've always been, I'm an independent. I mean, so is Bernie, so is Bernie. So what does an independent mean? So it's all over the place, right? I've always kind of voted in the middle, a lot of split tickets, especially in the local, because that's where most politics are. And because that's where it's going to directly affect you. But I also see that divide I've been trying to put a spotlight on that's between us, that's that one chapter or part of your book kind of puts a lens on, is frustrating to me because I totally hear what you're saying and respect your opinion as far as that view of what the current administration is like, because I see why those discussions come, because there are so many people that look at either one type of media or another type or series of medias, and they completely say completely different things. And literally, I've always watched all media, read the news, blah, 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 blah. I'm not a history buff or anything like that, but I've always been fascinated by how our country runs. And the unfortunate part is now there is so ingrained in people one view or the other that there's no ability to cross over the bridge of that, because what you're describing, and from what I've seen on both sides of the media, I see a total conflict. And what I'm seeing and deducing from that conflict really does lean to support, sorry, don't get mad at me, support the Trump organization, because while I've never respected him as a man, not that I'm any perfect or I'm throwing rocks through glass windows here, but from what he's doing, the day he said, when he came down and I said, I want to drain the swamp, that kind of framed where he's going to me. And the fact that the Oprah Winfrey's and all these people that throw shade on him now loved him, but because of his political differences, that all has changed. So I look at those little instances and they don't add up as far as the scale of justice. And so I get concerned when I look at this is my country and it's moving forward in one direction or another. I think the stuff that is being promoted as bad and evil and Nazi and all the other things that it gets promoted as, I know he asked for it. I've learned to understand, because if you know him as a person, and I know people who know him, he's a very different person than he's portrayed on CNN or something. And he was also portrayed that way before he became president. That really kind of a neat guy. He's not perfect, he's not anything, but he is also somebody who loves this country. And good, bad, or indifferent about him, sorry, this is starting to sound like a commercial, but really, honestly, I believe this. He is doing what he's doing every step for the great middle class, the American people. And the reason I point that out is because the whole building of the show is what I used to call watch parties, or still want to call them. There's actually a couple of them out in California, believe it or not. And what those do is they have people from different, you and me, in the same room eating snacks, back to that. And we're going through each item and what the pros and cons are of it, not to convince you, just this is what I know. Okay, well, this is what I know. Ooh, somebody's going to expand their knowledge, like we talked about earlier. And I'm bummed that there isn't more of this watch party incentive going on, because I think there's a lot, I know there's a lot of untruth, probably on both sides. I don't know what the volume of each side is, but it's radicalized. And that is very dangerous, not only for us, because whatever we do, the world follows, especially now, sorry to say this again, because of Trump, because he knows the power of our united community. He knows that power that it has. We are the backbone of the economic and industrial complexes of this nation. And again, by extension, what do they call them over in Europe? So we're middle class, they're another name, but same thing. And anywhere in the civilized world, you're the one building that country. And that's great. There's leaders and there's employees, right? You need that cohesion. But what we have now, and starting in the school system, that's where the Regeneration School Project comes in. What you have now is you have purposeful, I talked about it earlier, divide and conquer, purposeful division between us and created through the media by instruction of each party. And I know that, well, I don't know that for a fact because I haven't, but that's what's happening. And there's this not world order, but global one world, government kind of thing. All those things are starting to be reversed, which I believe is the best thing for the great American middle class. That's the only reason I wanted to inject that in there, and it got to be a little long there, but I just wish more people would look at all the news. I mean, I listen to Z24, the BBC, CNN, CNBC, which gets a little strong for me at times. I do watch The View, but and then of course, what are some whatever the ones on the right are, Fox News and Fox this and Fox that, and several others. But it's fascinating to look at a story on, say, Fox News, and there's all this data and statistics and this and that, and then there's this exact same story that is Trump is evil and he does ugly things, and there's no facts behind. There's no reason they said that statement. They just said that statement and then repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. So there becomes a bit of a ideology that develops over people. And I think that there's some of that on the other side as well. I just have noticed that Trump's playing 4D chess when everybody else, including me, are playing checkers, and including the world leaders. But that's sorry, I went off again. But is fear the root of most projection?
Yes. Fear is
Can you build on that and get me out of this hole for
yes.
myself?
Fear is the root of most projection, because whether or not it's fear, it's something that we're afraid of. So if we hate somebody, we can be afraid of that. I mean, odds are we're going to be afraid of that. It's not just
of hating them or afraid that exists.
Of both. I hate this person. No, I don't hate this person. That's horrible for my self-image, and I deny it, so I put it on that person. No, that person's the one who hates, not me. I'm innocent. But so it's still, even if it's, let's say, hate, anger, anything, it's still what scares us. It's still what scares us often about ourselves. And, you're talking about just one comment, like the world today. And I guess I go back to Jung, and then, he said that people haven't become worse. It's that we have so many weapons. And, his thing, and I guess if I could do one thing, aside from, like my personal growth, I would have everybody in the whole world sit down and learn, evolve, if you will, about their own good, bad, ugly, and start to realize that life is not about who's good and who's bad. It's about being human, and people are afraid of that. So yeah, so it's, I think, I talked about my own past, and I said I wanted to hurt that kid, and that scared me.
Yeah.
It was becoming less scared and becoming aware that I had everything in me that just got me more able to admit stuff, all of it.
Yeah. Another layer peeled back, right?
Right.
So let's go to Ryan here. Why don't you read his comment here? There's a couple of comments and a couple of questions before we kind of start to wrap up here, I think. Hey, by the way, I don't see a red light on the chat box over there. Did you hit
Okay,
send?
sorry.
No worries, no worries. We still got a little bit of time here, of course. You know, we're at a minute and 40, an hour and 40 minutes. Jeez.
Yeah. Wow.
I got dogs at home, Carol. Come on now.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I'm just messing with you.
I know. So
I like it. We talked about New Yorkers earlier, and I love the banter with the New Yorker. You guys are awesome.
yeah, me too. That's what I missed. I'm in Colorado now, you know, and I really thought I missed.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I go to Italy in the summer, but that's a whole other show. But then I thought I missed, you know, Jewish people because it's, you know, there's not a plethora here.
right.
But then I realized it's the New York Jewish wit.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
need to be pompous about it, but it's like boom, boom, boom. Okay, so all right.
Snap
So
it
what am
off.
I supposed to do? Loving this
So
live
boom,
discussion.
boom. Hold on. I still don't have a red light on my
But
private.
all right.
Did you type it and then
I'm
did you
doing
hit
it
the
now.
send button? Okay. All right. You're gonna force me to read this thing now.
Okay, I'll push you to read it.
Well, I'll have you reread it after I read that. Ryan says, loving this live discussion. Thanks for taking audience questions. And that's what I really love about the show is the audience. And they appreciate and show that love. You know, it's cool to have this platform where you get that interaction. So what do you say back to Ryan there, Carol?
You're so welcome. I mean, look, I won't lie. It's hard, you know, because you get a good question and I don't want to just give a quick answer that's overly
Absolutely.
smooth. You know, I want it to be real. So sometimes it's made me work. So you're very welcome. And thanks for
Read what
that.
Dirk's read what, just to follow up right on it. What did Dirk say here?
Really appreciating the depth and honesty in this live chat.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm really glad.
Cool. It's really cool. You've got a fan club here. While you're finishing your typing there, what happens to a society that shames vulnerability? And that's a great question he's got there. There you go. Okay, I'm going to jump off screen and make that connection over. Go ahead.
It's a good.
Read it again. Why don't you read it again?
What happens to a society that shames vulnerability? Well, we've been on for a while. So, you know, my first connection is they can become Nazis. And I don't know if that's the real answer that I want to give, but I feel that when vulnerability is shamed, people cannot be real, people cannot love, people cannot be authentic. And so people are in hiding and fake and in hiding about the fact that they're in hiding. Okay, so where are you?
Sorry. Somebody just came on. I'm gonna make sure that's correct. We got a couple more questions here. I was trying to get back your, but that's all correct. That's all lined up well. That looks good to me.
Good.
All right, cool. Then we're gonna come back here. This is a cool one. Linda Herman. I'll hook up with you at the end. But we're live 6 days a week. I'll get back to you. Let me jump back on up here, I think. No, we already did that one. Okay. Yeah. No, we didn't do this one.
No, we didn't do this one. It's a great question.
It's an awesome question from Brandon.
It is. Now you're making me really work.
Yeah, come on.
I'm getting tired
Put it
now.
on.
Okay.
Get it on. Come on.
Read
it out loud, would you?
How do we model vulnerability without oversharing?
Yeah. Or
And
or as producer Barbie told me early on, getting all up in somebody's Kool-Aid. Same thing. Go ahead.
yeah, well, I'm gonna stick with the oversharing with the
I
I
don't blame you.
um I think, let's see. Again, I'm talking about vulnerability protected, safety, dignity, and some sense of security. So I think unless you're very, very safe with a person, and even then it can get messy and you have to, you have to make it better after. But unless you're really, really intensely comfortable with someone, I think you can go slowly. I think going slowly is a good idea. Going slowly and kind of checking out what's happening, checking out what's happening. So you're not on a soul voyage, because if you
Yeah, you're
are,
getting
then
that
you're not
interaction
really
back and forth.
sharing.
Yeah, that
Then you're
makes
not really
sense.
sharing.
That feedback is
But it's a
really
really good
important.
question.
It's an awesome question. I love this. So go to go to Miss Hemingway here, or Ms. Hemingway here. Read what she's saying.
Great show, great conversation. Really making me think. Thank you so much. It's making me think too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. That came up right after you said that. So yeah, you guys are going back and forth. And then, hello from Wisconsin.
Hello from
Um,
Wisconsin.
yeah, we have people from all over.
Yeah, it's the
But
same
I
person.
just, I just found you. How often are you live? And like I was saying earlier, we're live 6 days a week, and the times vary slightly. Go to the YouTube channel at Rodd Duff 1939 and check us out there. So, Carol, you have quite a fan club, and I appreciate you being on the show. And why don't you give me a couple of minutes? Hey, this is what I want to leave all you wonderful folks with from me, Carol, today, and then give them a big wave. I'll throw you, so to speak, in the green room. I'll close this puppy down, tie her up, and,
Okay.
and meet you back there for howdy
Okay.
do's.
Well, I guess I want to say that the questions were really awesome.
They
I
were.
and really deep, and I appreciate
Yep.
them. And I feel like it's so hard to digest. But when I read the book Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, which you loved also, I
Mhm.
came away again. We are all equal. At the end of the day, we all have humanity in us. And I think the search would be to find the humanity under the accusations of any of us, on any side, and on any side of an argument, of a personal argument. That's what
Mhm.
is healing, is finding the humanity so we can empathize with the other person. And we can't really do that unless we empathize with us, which means we are so imperfect. And what I say at the end of my own book, it's like doing this work is such a moody business, but man, it's worthwhile.
Oh, that's beautiful. Why don't you give everybody a big wave? Let me put this baby in a bow, and I'll see you in a minute.
Okay,
Stay away from the green peanuts, okay?
try.
All right. Um, you know, right there. It's great to have experts on the show. Without experts, the show is very limited at best, and well, because the audience probably wouldn't be here without the experts. That's what I mean by that. At the end of the day, though, what you just witnessed right there, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but what you just witnessed there was something I've been actually looking forward to. And thank you, Carol, because what that whole conversation we just had about empathy and about vulnerability and about being able to have those conversations from a place still of strength and not broken down. Those conversations we carried it happened right there. I was driving an observation, And it was refreshing. It was comfortable, and it was a little bit on edge, and you could feel a little bit there, but it wasn't past that. And I think we both were able to have a little dance of conversation, which I know it did me expand each of our knowledge, and for sure it did for me. So Carol, thank you so much. Thank you for trusting this space. Thank you for modeling what it looks like to speak about vulnerability without turning it into performance. It's exactly what I mean. And thank you for reminding us that depth, humor, intuition, which we didn't get enough into intuition. There was a couple points I wanted to make. Oh, wow. Check this out. Shelley Harper. Yeah, this place goes all over the world. We've got a really nice following in Sweden and another one in the UK. But here, let me throw that up really quick. Hey, by the way, give you a warning, Carol. I hope this doesn't happen. Well, if it happens, it happens. But here we're closing down and people are jumping on. But you got somebody from Dublin jumping in and saying hi. I think that's pretty cool. Thank you for reminding us that depth, humor, and intuition, which again I was saying is to me is so such an interesting conversation. We didn't get into enough depth about. Maybe next conversation that might be there. And then of course the humor, and of course the discipline. So all these things can coexist. What you shared today, Carol, matters because it refuses to lie. That healing is linear, that insight is enough, or that aging means shrinking from the work of itself. That self-examination matters, right? To everyone watching or listening to the show, if this conversation slowed you down, if it unsettled you, if it gave you language to something that you felt but you never quite named, talk about that periodically. It's not accidental. That's what happens when vulnerability is treated as a strength instead of a liability. If you want more conversations like this, okay, conversations that go beneath the headlines and into the human psyche, I invite you to join us on Substack, insidestraighttalk.substack.com. We publish several times a week. Monday Barbieisms, Wednesday poems and pages, and then Friday is mic drop. And we carry each of these conversations through an arc throughout the week. It's an ecosystem. It's not a one conversation thing. Like I said, we publish that several days a week, and that's where these ideas continue to unfold in writing and reflection. We do a lot of reflection on that. We use a lot of reflection to kind of think about what that point means from a lens maybe you haven't or I haven't looked through before. And make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. That's here, right? At Rodd Duff 1939, where this full archive of conversations lives, and where this community continues to grow. We're almost at 25,000 now subscribers just in a year and a half. Now, if you're a sponsor, a partner, or an organization who believes that conversations like this matter, who believes empathy, education, and emotional literacy belong in the public square, we do have a limited number of partnerships and sponsorship opportunities available. We're intentional about who we align with, okay? And we build with people who understand that real leadership includes emotional courage. And finally, thank you again to our sponsors and our partners at the Mangum City Library, Leaf Lab, Regeneration School Project, and of course, Voices at the Table for helping make this conversations or conversations like this possible. Until next time, stay curious, wave at somebody, stay human, And don't be afraid to look at the shadow. This is Insights and Straight Talk. I'm Rodd Duff, and as I like to say, I'm out of here.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.